Hello and welcome to Take 6. I am streaming executive producer Thomas Mates, filling in for Julie Broughton. She is working nightside this evening, filling in for meteorologist Jonathan Kegis. And she'll be off tomorrow, so you're stuck with me for the next 2 days. It's been a minute since we've been together, but I'm happy to be here, and we've got a lot going on for you today. Of course, in the news, we are following the wrongful death lawsuit that is being filed by the family of Tyree Sampson, the young man who died falling from the Orlando freefall in 2022. We'll have updates for you on that coming up later today on News 6 at 4. But before that, we are looking at some political bickering that's happening in Astatula in Lake County. News 6 investigative reporter Donovan Myribio joining us coming up after the break to tell us more about that and all the problems that are happening for that small community out there. But before all of that, we are looking at the Artemis mission. NASA is set to give an update on this long-delayed, long over budget mission happening that's supposed to be sending astronauts back to the moon. Their update is coming at 1 o'clock. Of course, covering that today is News 6 reporter James Sparvero. He joins us now live. James, how are you doing today?
Hey, Thomas, I'm doing great. I really like joining you guys on Take 6.
Oh, excellent. We like having you. So, James, like I said, the NASA is set to give an update on Artemis today. We don't know exactly what they're going to say, but give us a little bit of background to what's led up to today. It was supposed to be sending astronauts back to the moon, I believe initially in 2025. It's almost 2025 now, and that doesn't look like that's going to happen, correct?
Yeah, so around the moon, that's the Artemis 2 mission. If you remember,
Correct.
Artemis 1 in 2022, that was just launching the rocket without the crew. And it was a big success as it went around the moon for the first time, the furthest away any spacecraft had traveled from Earth since the Apollo program. There was one problem that brought concern to NASA. When the Orion spacecraft re-entered, faster and hotter, as Administrator Bill Nelson loves to say, than any other spacecraft, 25,000 miles per hour, there was charring to the heat shield. So that poses the risk perhaps to the astronauts once they would get on board. So I'm thinking maybe today Administrator Nelson updates us on maybe finding the root cause of the damage to the heat shield. Have they fixed it? Are they good to go assembling the SLS for Artemis 2, which, yes, the timeline to this point has been late 2025. That was delayed about a year ago. And if you think all the way back to President Trump's first run in the White House, he gave this initiative that he wanted to put boots on the moon by the end of this year, 2024. Now, that would be the Artemis 3 mission, and of course, we're not even to Artemis 2 yet, and then Artemis 3 would be at least a year after that, perhaps longer, so we're not close. And of course, with President Trump coming back in the White House, there's a whole new conversation of rumors that are out there. Should SLS, as over budgeted, as behind schedule as it is, should the whole program just get canceled and just give Elon Musk's Starship mission full access to the moon program? We know Starship is going to be the moon lander, so it's working in coordination with the SLS rocket to take the astronauts from orbit to the lunar surface. But if you cancel SLS, could Starship do it all? That's the question. And we know how close Elon Musk is to President Trump, and we know there will be a new NASA administrator. Yesterday, President Trump nominated Jared Isaacman, who's now commanded 2 private space flights through SpaceX. So he is a billionaire customer of Elon Musk. So as close as these 3 men are, we probably could expect major changes with the new administration. Now, if I get the chance, it's going to be a teleconference because Administrator Nelson is in Washington. If I'm lucky enough to get called on to ask him a question over the phone, he's not going to speak to the actions of a new administration. But if it were up to him in the next 4 years, I wonder if he would still stay the course or if he would consider possibly making modifications too, considering that NASA's own Office of Inspector General, Thomas, has called the whole program unsustainable.
Yeah, what has been the general feeling on the SLS, being that it has been so over budget and potentially unsustainable? Is it just the thinking that it's just they've already sunk so much cost in it, they may as well proceed, or are they just sort of, waiting to see what the next administration is going to hand them?
Yeah, I think it's a little of both right now. So when I talked to our expert here, CBS's Bill Harwood, he put it to me like this: perhaps it's just too big to fail, right? They've
Hmm.
invested so much money. It's in the 20s of billions of dollars, I think, to this point, since the space shuttle program ended now 13 years ago. All the jobs that depend on the Artemis program right now. I have a friend who's an Artemis engineer. He's
Hmm.
about my age, and he thinks that's probably the truth. It's too big to fail. They'll at least get through the first few missions that are scheduled. Will it make it to the later missions? Who knows? It's all speculation right now. But again, you're right. With a new administration, there could be major changes. That's for sure. A new NASA administrator who has very close ties to the private side of the industry, which, by the way, is dominating the space industry. So
Hmm.
I just watched today our 87th launch of the year, and every one of them are from American companies this year, not NASA. NASA's
Yeah.
rocket, the SLS, hasn't launched in 2 years. So for the past 2 years, you add up 87 launches today, this year, and 72 launches in 2023, over 150 launches in the last 2 years that were all done by American companies. Yes, they have partnerships with NASA for the cargo or the payload or the mission itself, but the rocket belongs to the company. And so would somebody like Jared Isaacman, would he go in and make major changes? It's going to be very, very interesting.
Definitely. And, Musk is set to lead this new government, this new, what's the term I'm looking for? This new bureau that's trying to eliminate government waste. And, a lot of people have
Like,
pointed the SLS as being, as you said, very over budget and, more than just the internal NASA inspector generals have said that it's unsustainable and, a real problem budgetarily. So it stands to reason that Musk might try to flex a little bit of additional pressure to see this SLS, the Artemis mission as it stands now, changed over to the completely to the private sector.
well, we know he's one of the two richest men in the world. And, Jeff Bezos has his interests out here as well with the New Glenn rocket under Blue Origin, which we'll see a maiden flight at some point in the next year, we think. If you're at the beach, you can see the rocket lately at the pad, the actual rocket, not the mock up.
Mm-hmm.
New Glenn is 300 feet tall. So, incredibly exciting things happening on the commercial side. The goal this year was 100 launches on the year. We've got 87 with the 3 weeks left in the year. Perhaps we get to 90, likely get to 90, and then the goal would be even higher for next year. And then as Starship continues its test flights in Texas, eventually we know Starship is supposed to launch here. And over the next
Mm.
4 years, so that would be over the life of the next Trump administration, SpaceX believes Starship will launch hundreds of times. So, will Starship launch to only land the astronauts on the moon, or will it do the entire mission? That is the big question right now, Thomas.
Yes. Well, hopefully we'll get some new information this afternoon during that teleconference. Like you said, you'll be on there. You'll be trying to get your question in to the NASA administrator, but it's going to be a very crowded field, I'm sure. So hopefully we'll hear from you. But if not, I'm sure you'll bring us all the updates this afternoon on New 6.
We'll have a good story for you then. Thanks, Thomas.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, James. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it.
All right. And with that, we are going to take a quick break. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking with News 6 investigative reporter Donovan Myrie, talking about those political bickering, political back and forth that's happening in Astatula out in Lake County. We'll also be touching base with digital meteorologist David Nazario. He'll be bringing us your local forecast, looking ahead to the weekend and what's coming next as we still live in this cold snap for at least a little bit longer, but a warm-up is on the way from what I understand. He'll have all of the details coming up in just a few minutes. We'll be back after a 2-minute break. Welcome back to Take Six. I'm streaming executive producer Thomas Mates, filling in for Julie Broughton. I am sorry. I completely spaced on her name for a minute. Julie Broughton will be in this evening, filling in for meteorologist Jonathan Kegis. You'll be seeing her starting at 4 this afternoon. But in the meantime, you're here with me, and I am about to be joined by News 6 investigative reporter Donovan Myrie. He is covering a story out of Astatula, which is just a fun city name to say. Donovan, I'm glad I got a little crack up out of you. Donovan, out there in Astatula, there is a bit of political back and forth that's happening, some bickering, one might even say. What is happening in Astatula, the Lake of Sunbeams?
It is the Lake of Sunbeams, Thomas. Yes, and wow, it's hard with everybody filling in for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's kind of who's who, what,
yeah,
where am
exactly,
I, what's going on?
Exactly.
So this is a story of state policy clashing with the charter of a small town in Lake County in Astatula. The story, well, what happens when someone wins an election but they can't be sworn in? Why?
I don't know.
Are you the mayor of Astatula?
Not yet.
Why?
I don't know.
Meet Zane Teeters. He's a former town council member of Astatula. In last month's election, Teeters beat incumbent Mayor Mitchell Mack. You did not have a wide margin of victory.
I did not. It was 25 votes, 2.5%.
But that's not enough to trigger a recount or anything.
It is not.
According to Teeters, Astatula's deputy town clerk was directed to hold off on bringing him into office.
She claims that the supervisors of elections advised her to not swear anybody in until the election was certified.
Jennifer Tucker, Astatula's deputy town clerk, sent News 6 this statement. The Supervisor of Elections Office can only inform municipalities of the law and the need to wait for official results to be certified prior to swearing in new officials.
Astatula's next meeting was scheduled for December 10th. That wouldn't be much of a problem, except the term for the current mayor ends on November 30th. So between December 1st and December 10th, Astatula would have no political leadership. That's not a good thing.
Teeters asked a judge to intervene and order the town to abide by its charter.
So you got a threat of a lawsuit.
The tactic worked.
I, Zane Teeters, do solemnly swear.
News 6 was there as Teeters, Councilman Ryan Wilbur, and Councilwoman Kay McQueen were all sworn in at a special town meeting on November 25th. Are you now mayor-elect?
I am now mayor-elect.
What happens now? How does it go forward?
Hopefully, I will be able to work with the current mayor to have him bring me up to speed.
In Astatula, Donovan Myrie getting results, News 6. Yeah, so Thomas, it's really interesting because the mayor-elect is actually now the mayor. That's Zane Teeters. His term started on December 1st. And again, the big problem here was that with everything that was going on, Astatula was not going to have a mayor for 10 days. Now, again, it doesn't sound like that big a deal, but if anything happened, you had nobody who could actually technically authorize things to get done. Signing of checks, like you said, if there was an emergency, directing police departments or something like that. And it's just kind of like this weird quirk of these two things kind of clashing together, and Zane Teeters, as well as those two council members, being caught in the middle.
And to his credit, it does seem somewhat, small town politics kind of thing, but he seems like he's willing to work with everybody involved, even though there was that little bit of pushback leading into his starting his term in office. That doesn't always set the best tone, but he seems like he's willing to let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, and it's tough because the person you didn't see in that was Jennifer Tucker. And Jennifer, we sent her questions. And, it's very easy to say, I'm not going to answer your questions because of whatever. To her credit, Jennifer Tucker basically sent us back really great details, great answers to the questions that we sent over. And one of the big things was she said, by the time we figured this out, we couldn't not stop it. Basically, we were looking at this and it was clashing with this and we didn't know what to do. And to her credit, she said, I asked the mayor. And he said, we better talk to our council. And they asked their council, and their council basically said, here's what it is, that you should hold off on this until everything clears. And the weird thing was the fact that you could have held off an extra 3 days, had a meeting, sworn him in, all set. But the fact that the next town meeting wasn't until December 10th, that's where the problem occurred. So between November 30th / December 1st and December 10th, no leadership, and that doesn't work. And then the one thing that Zane Teeter said is part of swearing that person in as soon as they win or in that next meeting is so that the mayor and the mayor-elect can have overlap, so they can talk to each other. Same way that we're having transition now between Biden and Trump. You know, so you have this kind of like, you know, it's we say it cliche-ish kind of this peaceful transfer of power, but literally it is so that you can get those people up to speed.
Yeah, it is very much a microcosm of what's happening, you know, across the country now as, you know, people are leaving seats that they were occupying, making way for the new power all the way up to the White House. You know, it seems like this was largely a procedural issue, but the mayor-elect, now the mayor, his point was that other cities seem to be able to do this without issue. Why can't we? Correct?
Yeah, and I think that's where their town charter came into play, and that their town charter specifically outlined that this person would be sworn in at the next meeting after the election. And the next meeting came before everything was certified. I don't know how other town charters are. He looked at Howie on the Hills. He said, hey, look, they're right next door to us. They swore their people in. Everything is fine. But basically what it's going to have to come down to now is now that he's in there, now that they know that this problem exists, it's going to be up to the mayor and the town council to get together, you know, get a referendum together to alter that town charter, change that town charter so that this doesn't happen. And then one more thing that really makes this bizarre, since they've changed the town charter to say what it says, it's been 12 years since they've really had an election in Astatula. Mind you, they have elections every 2 years, but pretty much everyone ran uncontested. So this is the first time that you really had a race. The former mayor, now the former mayor of Astatula, had been mayor for 12 years. He had never really run against somebody. And then for him to lose, all of a sudden, it's like, what do we do now? It's kind of like the Waffle House when they closed for a hurricane. Like, wait, do we have locks on the doors and where are the keys?
Yeah,
because nobody's used them in so long.
And you had mentioned that the new mayor won by the tiniest of margins, 25 votes. There's only 1,800 people or so in the whole town. So, you know, it's not surprising that it's just things just kept on rolling along, sort of that institutional inertia that can happen in, you know, a tight-knit community like that. I you know, rather than calling them a small town, we'll call them tight-knit. But you know,
And it's we've been up there now a couple of times. What a nice place. The nicest people, greatest place. Shout out to Jamie at the Race Car Diner, the woman who owns it. Gave us the best burgers and fries. Wow. We're excited to go back again and talk with her and talk all things NASCAR. So you should really check it out if you get up there.
Yes. Not a paid promotion. New Six can't be bought. No,
we cannot
just good
be bought,
burgers
but
and fries.
What? We were hungry and it was good.
Excellent. All right. Well, I know you'll be following this as it moves along and as they look to prevent this sort of, you know, procedural issue from happening again. But you have a longer version of your story that's airing tonight. What time is it when can people see that tonight?
I am in the 6 o'clock show. So again, we have, like you said, a longer version in the 6 o'clock show. Also be doing the story and 4:30 show in producer Brooks' show. So you'll see me a couple times this afternoon. And the long version is actually worth sticking around for. So if you've seen this version, the long version is twice as long. And we go into a little bit more detail on some things. So this was a good tease to it, but you should stick around and watch us at 6, okay?
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Donovan. I appreciate your time.
Thomas, thank you very much.
No problem. Whoop. All right. Have a good one. Okay. We are now going to get a check of the weather with digital meteorologist David Nazario. David, I think there's your mic. I was just about to ask you to put that on. Hold on one second. We can see your pretty face. There you are. How are you doing, David?
There we go. Doing pretty good, Tom. How about you, dude?
Oh, not too bad. You know, it's Thursday. The week's almost over. We're all working for the weekend, as a wise man once said. So
absolutely.
What can we look forward to for that weekend? I think you have a bit of a scoop on that.
I do, very much so. Thank you very much. So this weekend is actually looking pretty solid, to tell you the truth. This weekend, we are going to see a bit of a slow warming trend. We have another cold front getting ready to rock through our area here momentarily, but it's not going to have as much cold air back behind it as we just witnessed this past weekend through the early first half of this week. So on this Friday Eve, we're looking at the water vapor satellite shot, and I want to bring in for a couple of different features here. You can see we have this dark shading. I'll stop the loop so I can go ahead and do some doodling on this. I love to doodle with these satellite images. We've got this dark shading ripping across the desert Southwest, the mid-central United States, the mid-Atlantic, down into the southeast. And if you look at all this shade of blue right here, that's going to be the nose of that next batch of cold air pushing off towards the southeast. That's going to be rocking through us within the next 18 to 24 hours. That's what's going to help to clear us out just in time for the weekend, and we should be looking at cool starts to the day with fairly mild temperatures in the afternoon. Once we get to the 7-day, you'll see that painted very clearly. Coming on over to the radar, I'm not too sure what just happened there. It looked like the thing had an aneurysm for a second. You can see the showers associated with that cold front slowly coming on in. And at first glance, it looks like maybe Central Florida will get a little dousing of some rainfall, just like we saw with the last front, those fast-moving light rain showers as they rocketed from west to east over the peninsula. This is unfortunately going to lose a lot of that luster as it comes across the Florida peninsula. And as a result, we're not looking at anything in terms of significant rain chances with this. Moving on over to our upper level pattern. So before we get into the rainfall that's possible for next week, just want to show you all a graphic here that's really going to illustrate the temperature changes that we're anticipating over the next several days. Not only the next 2 to 4 through the weekend, but especially all through the work week next week as we enter middle December. So up over the Northeast and the Great Lakes, you can see the shades of blue transitioning to the pinks and then eventually the purples. That is a parent low-pressure system that's helping to direct all that cold polar air, hopefully through our neck of the woods and further south into the Gulf of Mexico. If you notice, as that exits the area of responsibility, or to tap into my military isms, our AOR, you'll notice that that blue H spinning over Cuba is going to start to build in intensity. Now see how those shades of orange and yellows slowly but surely through the weekend begin to build further and further towards the north. However, as we get into Sunday night and Monday, if you look up over the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, the front range of the Rocky Mountains, you notice an even thicker pool of those purple magenta colors. That's going to be that next trough and strong push of cold air out of Canada that is expected to run head first into all those above average temperatures and somewhat tropical moisture across the deep south, us here in Florida and the southeast United States. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. I want to show you all the future radar brought to us by the American model, the GFS. This is going through the day today. You can see as that front comes through, getting into your Friday evening, and not a whole lot associated with it. We're going to have northerly winds driving the cooler air, the drier air, down through Florida into the Gulf of Mexico, into the Bahamas. But then watch what happens out over the southern plains. You see all that moisture beginning to build right in through here. Look at the pen tool back out again. That's that southerly flow along the west side of a high pressure that's just marinating over the southeast, helping to churn the atmosphere a little bit and stir the pot of instability. And that's what we're going to have to keep a close eye on as we go through the early portions of next week. I'll clear the illustration here so you guys can see a little bit clearer, and I'll zoom us in, get my face out of the picture. Watch as we go through Monday and then Tuesday and into Wednesday. Look at how much oomph that next front starts to build in. And that's with our most recent model run. You can see a clear linear line or linear stream of rainfall and potential isolated thunderstorms with this as that push of cold air runs face first into that high pressure, helping to drive some of that Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico tropical warmth and moist air up into our neck of the woods. This is also what I want us to keep a close eye on. This here is going to be called your storm energy, or for us weather folk, your convective available potential energy, essentially how much lift there is in the atmosphere to form rain, form clouds, form updrafts, form actual thunderstorms. And if you look, this is fast forwarded to next Tuesday at 11 a.m. You can already see a lot of the upper Gulf coastline from southern Texas through Louisiana, even into us here in central Florida. We're already bathed with some decent values of CAPE that could help to produce some greater chances for rain and maybe a snap, crackle, pop of lightning. If you go through Tuesday and then especially Wednesday, this is currently forecasted to be a daytime event. If you look, our CAPE values, the storm energy really starts to go up as we prepare for frontal passage later on that day. And that's why I do think, despite not seeing a whole lot of rain with the last couple of fronts that came through, obviously the previous that brought us those frigid temperatures dropping us into the 30s was a bit of an exception. But even then, it didn't have too much oomph behind it. This one's going to have some leftover energy and some better atmospheric characteristics to toy around with a little bit and see if we can finally get some much needed rainfall, heavier bouts of rainfall. It will probably be quick duration. It'll be quick moving, but it'll be heavier than what we saw with those annoying little sprinkles, drizzles, and rain showers from the end of last week into the holiday weekend. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and take a look at what to expect for the next couple of days as we go into Friday and then your Saturday forecast. The day today, we're pretty much already leveling out. Whatever you're feeling outside at this point, 1 p.m. in the afternoon is going to be par of the course rest of the day. Tomorrow, we're looking at a bit of a cooler afternoon as that front comes through, with temperatures starting off in the upper 40s, low 50s, depending on where you are here in Central Florida. And then finally, a look at your pinpoint accurate forecast, looking at the 7-day window. Thursday, Friday, you can see 70s for the day today, into the 60s tomorrow. Notice we do drop the low temperature Saturday and Sunday, so it's going to be one of those weird days where you step outside in the morning and it's a bit, whoa, okay, I might need a jacket or a hoodie or something like that. But then later in the day, you're definitely going to want to peel those bad boys off as those temps get into the mid-70s across our viewing area. And then I want to emphasize that those Wednesday rain chances are probably going to go up depending on exactly how our models trend over the next 2, 3, 4 days, and especially with what we have in store on Monday to dig into and get you guys all the information you need to plan your next work week ahead.
All right. You know, I've been enjoying the cooler temperatures. I know Floridians have some mixed feelings about the colder weather. I've been enjoying it, but, you know, rising back into the 70s, low 80s, I'll still take it. It's not bad. It beats the 90s and 100% humidity that we saw earlier this year. So
exactly. That helps a little bit.
For sure. Before I let you go, I just have to say, when you said we could see the snap, crackle, pop of lightning, that killed me. Cracks me up right there. You are a wordsmith, sir. You've always got these little Nazario-isms that I really appreciate.
Nazario-isms, I love
yes.
it. We got to coin that.
Exactly.
The Naz-isms.
Yes. Perfect. All right. Well, David, I'll let you go for right now because we're butting right up against the 1 o'clock hour. But thank you so much for your time. And you'll be filling in tomorrow night for Jonathan, correct?
Correct, yes. So evening shows Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Ah, well, what a treat for all our viewers then. All right, well, I'll let you go. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.
You too, my friend.
All right, and that'll do it for us here on Take 6. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we'll have more news and weather coming up on News 6 at 4. We'll be seeing updates to Donovan's story coming up on News 6 at 6. And, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we are following the wrongful death lawsuit happening today in court for Tyree Sampson, the young man who died in 2022 after falling from the Orlando freefall. All those updates will be coming from News 6 reporter Stephanie Rodriguez. She'll have all the latest starting at 4. We hope you'll stick with us, and thank you so much for your time. Have a pleasant day.